We're back in trial. Says, as we return from the break, government's back there, prosecutors at their table, Trump and the defense team there. Judge says, before we begin, government, do you have a draft of the proposed curative instruction? And what they're fixing is what Todd Blanche said, that if in his closing arguments, if the jury convicts Trump, he might go to prison. You're not allowed to say that because the last thing they want you to do is know what the penalty is if you're on the jury. So it says, well, what is your curative instruction to fix that mistake from Todd Blanche? The government says, well, Mr. Blanche was on notice. This was inappropriate. And so we also want a curative instruction on retainer agreements, because if they're going to get something, they might as well get more. Mr. Blanche misstated the law. And so we also want a curative instruction on that. It says, on the retainer agreement, we ask for time to put in a more substantive response tonight. And the judge says, well, the instruction on sentencing, I will give exactly as I've written here. And on the retainer, I'm not going to do it because it would just call more attention to the retainer. And I don't want them to be thinking about this retainer. We're not talking about written retainers or not. So they get that out of the way before they bring the jury back for closing arguments. Jury comes in. Judge says to the panel, all right, ladies and gentlemen, before we begin with the government's summations, I want to clarify something that happened with the defense. During their closings, you heard Mr. Blanche ask you not to send Trump to prison. Now, that type of language is not permitted, and you must not consider it. If Trump is found guilty, sentencing will be my decision, not yours. And I'll do whatever I want. Government, are you ready for your closing arguments? Prosecutor stands up. He says, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Jerry. He says, we asked you in our opening to follow the facts, ladies and gentlemen. The bank records. We asked you to tune out the noise and to ignore the sideshows. If you can, you'll see that the people have presented strong evidence. And the defense seems to be questioning our integrity. The defense has integrity problems of their own. Says they double counted Mr. Cohen's calls with Mr. Costello, but we don't have the records for Mr. Trump's phone lines in the White House. And the absence of a call record does not prove that the call did not happen. All right, we got to be very careful about burden shifting here. We don't have the records for Trump's phone lines in the White House, almost implying that it's Trump's responsibility to produce the records to exonerate himself. It's not his burden. It's the government's burden. They try to shift it all the time. Now, the tape Mr. Blanche played, it wasn't about Stormy Daniels. It was about her ex-boyfriend, says the government. Daniels' first goal was to try to get the story on the record. That's why she recorded it. She tried to protect herself and her family. And Gina Rodriguez was reaching out to Dylan Howard. And so this is all normal. And extortion is not a defense to falsifying business records. So Trump can't suddenly claim, well, I falsified it because I was being extorted. If you have any doubts about that, ask the judge. He'll tell you very clearly. Even if you think Trump was the victim of some extortionate scheme, he doesn't get to change his records. He should have gone to the cops and told them not to create false entries. Mr. Blanche praised Pecker. Well, Mr. Pecker eliminates the notion that this is politics as usual, is what he said. He said Mr. Pecker has no reason to lie. But the truth is Mr. Pecker was devastating. Other witnesses, says this prosecutor, yes, have been attacked by the defendant on social media, subject to the wrath of his most fiery supporters. Are they doing the insurrection close right now, the insurrection closing argument? Stormy Daniels was silent in 2017 until Cohen started saying the sex never happened. And he says, yeah, well, some of her testimony was cringeworthy. We agree. We acknowledge that. We know. But fortunately, Stormy Daniels did not offer details into the actual sexual act. Gross. It's a false business records case. If you credit her testimony, it shows motive. Yes, her story's messy. Okay, that's the point, ladies and gentlemen. What an admission from the government. Yeah, her story's a little bit messy. Yeah, but that's the point. She's a porn star. They're very messy. Stormy Daniels is the motive. And so that brings us to Michael Cohen. He's again coping hard. I told you, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, he has baggage for sure. These two admissions. This is a hell of a tweet right here, I'll tell you. Yeah, her story's messy, Ted. Yeah, and he's got some baggage too. We agreed that Cohen is an interested witness. Yeah, but listen to his honor. Listen to his honor. Michael Cohen is understandably angry. Pecker got a non-prosecution agreement. He didn't get charged. Howard's in Australia. He's not being prosecuted either. And so Cohen was Trump's consigliere. Then he got dropped like a hot potato and Trump called him a sleazebag. The other guys fled, but Cohen got stuck with this. And by the way, Cohen didn't say in this trial that he spoke with District Attorney Bragg. The conversation with Davidson, which is Exhibit 265, Cohen reveals that Trump, quote, hates the fact that we did it. Cohen had no motive to lie at that time when he said that. He was still getting monthly checks. So when he was saying he hates the fact that we did it, that was the truth. Now, the defense says that Cohen stole from the Trump Organization. I'll call it the TO. Cohen laid out $20,000, but allowed Weisselberg to write $50,000. That was wrong. Yeah, that's stealing. We admit it. But after doing 3 years, he says he paid the price. Now, that's not a defense to stealing, but he said he paid the price. This is insane that a prosecutor is excusing theft in his closing argument. Yes, our witness committed theft, stealing. He committed a new crime to the tune of about 30 grand. But he says he's paid the price. And the prosecutor says, and that's way worse. This is way not even a big deal. What Trump did is dramatically worse. Prosecutor. Now, Cohen is making money. That's true. He's even selling merchandise. Yeah. And Mr. Blanche put up a slide on that, put up Cohen's t-shirt. Now, that's not a crime, though, to sell merchandise. And I suspect that Michael Cohen's going to continue to do that. But he can't own taxi medallions anymore, so he gets online. And when he gets online, he gets attacked from Trump and from his supporters, like us. Cohen feels like he was treated unfairly, but he went to prison for that. And so sure, you should consider it. You should consider what he said and what he's done. But does it cause you to outright shut your ears to all that he has to say? La, la, la. His lies to Congress had to do with Robert Mueller, and he got no benefit from that at all. And so some of his lies are lies, but some of his statements are not, and you get to decide. Now, the October 24th phone call, they said it was a big problem, but Cohen said that he did not initially remember all of the topics. I want you to look at this photo, ladies and gentlemen. Now, let me do a dramatic reading. This photo, the defendant and Mr. Schiller were together. Then Cohen texts the kid's number to Keith Schiller. Now, maybe Cohen got the day and the time of the call wrong. We don't know. You know you made a call, you see a record and you say, yeah, that's it. That's the day I made the call. Sometimes you just get the days wrong. If Cohen really wanted to come in here and lie, he would have gone even further. He would have made up a bunch of other stuff. But this was just a simple innocent mistake. That wasn't a lie. He just got confused. Let's think about how this works, says the government. Cohen was the buffer, the guy on the ground who could bully everyone else. He was a way for Trump to maintain plausible deniability, or here, implausible deniability. I'm sure the prosecutor is very happy with himself on that one. We didn't pick Cohen up at the witness store. He's not like our favorite, okay? Mr. Trump picked him, and we're just doing what we have to do with him. And I want to read you this passage from this book. Think Big. Trump wrote this. Trump said in his own book, I value loyalty over anything else. He's looking at the jury with this ominous reading. And Cohen was drawn to the defendant like a moth to a flame. Trump just used David Pecker, and he corrupted those around him, and he made them lie. And Robert Costello, also the purported back channel, was in fact a double agent, ladies and gentlemen. Michael Cohen came clear, and he's been consistent for 6 years, and he came clean. He came clean to Congress in 2019 after he flipped. He apologized for lying. And as we discussed in jury selection, it's whether Cohen has reliable information that matters. And so here's our timeline. Our timeline starts in August 2015. Rich and powerful men were meeting to control the election. Hope Hicks says she might have in and out or been in and out, which is understandable. You don't want to tell your media manager, especially a female, objection, overruled by the judge. Yeah, I would say whatever you guys want, whatever. Your media manager, a female, you don't want to tell her about, this is such a scam. Pecker and AMI became covert arms of the Trump campaign. They were out there purchasing stories. They were making illegal campaign contributions in doing so. Contracts are legal, but a contract to kill your wife isn't. The American people have a right to know about Trump's affairs. The Trump Tower meeting with David Pecker may very well be the reason that he got elected. Sure, Mr. Pecker said that he would publish the love child story if true, but he was willing to wait until after the election, so it is a catch and kill. Now, this is Catch and Kill Volume 2. First, the door guy, then we have the Karen McDougal saga. Davidson told Dylan Howard, who told Pecker, who told Cohen. Cohen said he was under a strict order to keep Trump informed, and then Pecker was in New Jersey, and Trump called. But Pecker said that Mr. Trump told him that Karen was, quote, a nice girl. You heard him say that. And they discussed competing offers for her story. Trump said these types of stories always get out, and it turns out Trump was right. But ladies and gentlemen, as Davidson told you, he was shopping the story to ABC News also, who offered her a spot on Dancing with the Stars in exchange for going public. Yeah, Karen preferred the National Enquirer over being the next Monica Lewinsky, but that's because Trump was looming behind everything they were doing. Davidson was reluctant to call Cohen, given their interaction in 2011, but he emailed Cohen and said it was a professional courtesy for him to do that. Howard said Cohen is hopeless, but another one done, and AMI paid out $150,000. Now, the defense tried to imply that AMI admitted to campaign campaign finance violations because they were trying to close a second deal. Objection! Overruled. Come on. These were unlawful campaign contributions, says the prosecutor. These weren't just deals. The defense tried to make much that Cohen took another call. Newsflash, people use their phones. How many times have you migrated on iTunes and bounced around? There was a full restore to a new device. Cohen got his phone back. The FBI had already downloaded from Cohen's phone, including his recording of Trump. Objection! Overruled again. The metadata proved that none of this was tampered with, and the judge says, we'll take a break. Now we're back. Government, how far along are you, says the judge. Are we moving this along? He says, I'm 1/3 of the way through. The whole courtroom goes, what? We're bored out of our mind, man. We got 2/3 of this left to go. Judge says, okay, well, I guess let's go. We'll take our next break at 5:30, and you tell me when you want it. They pick back up. Prosecutor to the jurors. Here is the Washington Post email to the campaign about the Access Hollywood tape. Hope Hicks told you when she testified that the consensus was that the Access Hollywood tape was a crisis. They had a talk, you see. Could it be spun as locker room talk? Now, this is somewhat mealy-mouthed excuse that it was locker room banter. It really didn't work. So Trump did a video. He said, Bill Clinton has actually abused women. See you at the debate. He also portrayed Hillary Clinton as an enabler, somebody who enabled Bill. So he doesn't care about women. And here is Trump in Greensboro in October 2016. And here, Rodriguez, there's a C-SPAN video that they play, and here Rodriguez gets overzealous, saying that Stormy Daniels had sex multiple times with Trump. So Rodriguez she slept with him all the time. But yeah, Miss Daniels has never said that. The government admits that, yeah. So Howard is suddenly more interested. Now, there were only 3 weeks until the election happened, and they were talking about the story going to the Daily Mail. Melania Trump, says the prosecutor, it's like story time, asked Cohen to call Trump. Cohen believes he did it from his landline. Melania asks Cohen to call Trump. Cohen says, I called from my landline. We don't have records for that. Isn't that convenient? Now, the payment to Stormy Daniels was 11 days before the election. Trump's concern was not his family, ladies and gentlemen. That's a lie. But his campaign was the concern. Okay, Hope Hicks mentioned not delivering newspapers to Melania, but asked, how's it playing? So yeah, maybe he did have some concern about Melania. It's wild that he brought that up. Hope Hicks mentioned, yeah, Trump said don't deliver the news to Melania. Why? Doesn't want his wife to get upset about it. But he asked, how's it playing? So he was actually more concerned about the election. On November 8th, Trump was elected. And the jurors, all New Yorkers, got shivers down their spine. We have a short break and we're back. Prosecutor continues, saying, now I want to talk about the business record. Michael Cohen asked David Pecker to intervene on his behalf. Also, Davidson. While he was shopping at some oddly decorated box store, if you remember, Cohen said that Trump said not to worry. And Trump also gave orders to Michael Cohen and Alan Weisselberg. And Weisselberg gave orders to McConney. They never even called Weisselberg. Who gave orders to Deb, and the false business records were created. Listen to these weirdos. Trump gave his orders to Cohen and Weisselberg. Weisselberg gave it to McConney. McConney gave it to Deb. You follow the bouncing ball all the way to the end of the line. Ladies and gentlemen, here is the bank statement that Weisselberg gave to McConney. And here are McConney's notes. They are acting in concert, as you can see. The judge is going to give you instructions. And I was going to explain all the things, but I didn't realize how clear Michael Cohen was with you. The 1099 is false. It was a no non-employee compensation. It was not non-employee compensation. It was a reimbursement. So that's also fraudulent. It's a crime to file false tax documents, even if you overpay. Now, Cohen did 10 hours of legal work for Trump in 2017. And would Trump pay those fees for 2017 work? You think he's going to pay $35,000 a month for those? That it for 10 hours? No. So now let's go over the invoices, the vouchers, and the checks. On some of these, you can kind of see the staple markings. The defense is saying it was all cooked up by Weisselberg? That's crazy. Trump is signing his $80 Verizon bill, and he finds this $35,000. Now, the defense brought in Madeleine Westerhout to say that he would sign presidential proclamations without reading them. She also said that Trump would call Weisselberg about particular checks. And Miss Nicholas also desperately tried to walk that back too. But Trump could let his wife sign checks. He could have set up auto pay. He could have Venmoed him. But Mr. Trump wanted to retain control. That's who he is. He admitted it in his books. Here's what he said in the book called Think from a Billionaire, Think Like a Billionaire. He wrote in his books, he says, I try to sign as many checks as possible. Hope Hicks put the nail in Mr. Trump and then cried, objection, overruled again. Trump cared about the election, ladies and gentlemen, not his family. And here, Michael Cohen Cohen bragged that he was not going to deny the FEC complaint with a patently false statement. Objection! Overruled. New York is the business capital of the world, ladies and gentlemen. You have an obligation to keep records here. This is about lying in business records, just like hundreds of cases before. Objection! Overruled. Please approach. Court officer, there's whispering. Quiet down, please, says the court officer. Quiet down back there. Prosecutor says, you guys good to go on a bit longer? Jurors are nodding. Yeah, he says, all right. Now here Trump tweeted that he didn't think Michael Cohen would flip. Cohen met with Costello, but Cohen didn't trust Costello. And can you blame him? You saw him. And this email, he wrote, we are following instruction from Rudy. See that? And so you're allowed to consist and contrast Costello's demeanor on the stand. The judge is going to tell you that. And look at this email. Robert Costello writes to Cintron. He says, this a-hole is playing with the most powerful man on the planet. And so Cohen chose to plead guilty. Objection. Approach. Sidebar. Government goes back. So then there's this question. Would you have paid absent the election? Objection. Overruled. Cohen said no. Cohen says, I wouldn't have paid if there was no election. And this is also from Trump's book called Think Big, and also from his book called Revenge. On True Social, he called Stormy Daniels horseface because her face looks like a horse. Even Monograph says Daniels came to Trump Tower because she wanted to be on The Apprentice. Now here in all caps, Trump wrote this, ladies and gentlemen, if you go after me, I'm coming after you. It's the throng of his followers. They're maniacs. Objection. Please approach. Government says, well, I'm not saying that it was Mr. Trump's intention to have his throngs get involved, but they're here. And the judge says, we're going to take the final break of the day. Still going. Now, the judge tells us, the jurors have told us that they can go to 8 p.m. Mr. Steinglass, maybe a colleague can hand you a note then to wrap it up. And so bring in the jury. They take a break and we're back. Now, the judge tells us that the jurors have told us they can go home at 8 p.m. The judge says to the prosecutor, Mr. Steinglass, maybe a colleague can help you hand a note to you and then you can wrap it up. And he says, okay, sounds good, judge. We'll do that. Bring in the jury. Jury comes in. All rise. Please be seated. They're back. Prosecutor says to the jurors, now here's the story about Ted Cruz's father and Lee Harvey Oswald that the National Enquirer posted. AMI puts that on the screen. Ted Cruz, as we know, may or may not be the Zodiac killer. His father may or may not have executed JFK. No court of law has come to a determination about this. You want to know more about it? Ted Cruz has a podcast. Prosecutor says, this is from Michael Cohen's testimony. He said, I required approval from him on all of this. It's consistent with Mr. Trump's management style that he would have to get approval from Trump. And this call from Cohen to Trump was also on Schiller's phone. And how do we know that? Government says, because it was a media monsoon. Now look at this timeline entry. From March 2018, Stormy Daniels goes on Anderson Cooper. And then after she did, Donald Trump complained that she broke the NDA. And so as we can see, ladies and gentlemen, the false business records benefited only Trump. Look at the evidence as a whole, and you'll see that very clearly. Now, we don't have to show that Trump actually created the false records. He didn't have to sign off on this or anything. This is a no-brainer. There is ample evidence here of an intent to defraud. You've seen it. And there also has to be another crime. Well, what crime? The answer is New York State election law. We finally have it. And we know why they're going this route is because pursuant to the jury instructions, this can be whatever you want. Conspiracy to get an advantage in New York election law related to anything that Michael Cohen did is enough to satisfy the object, the predicate offense. Talked about that at length yesterday on the jury instructions segment. Now, we are beating a dead horse here, they say. No, you're not. This is the first time we're actually hearing what your theory of the case is. So thanks for telling us now in your closing arguments. And they also committed FEC violations. Defense objection. Overruled. Shut up. And ladies and gentlemen, this was a campaign contribution. That's why it was made. For an election, Trump already announced that he was going to run for president again. And so, ladies and gentlemen, when you go back in there and you deliberate, the government closes their argument. They say, you don't even have to agree on which crime. The judge is going to tell you that. You can pick whatever you want. Pick a crime, any crime. Choose a crime, any crime. It's your own adventure. We're all winners here, which I think is illegal. There's Supreme Court case law that we talked about yesterday, released it in our video. Judge Merchan is wrong to articulate why that is. You don't get to just pick the elements of the offense and they all just stick because you disagree amongst yourselves. But But they say all roads lead to former President Donald Trump, and you, the jury, can hold him accountable. Very soon it will be time to go deliberate and then come back in here. And when you do, say guilty 34 times. The judge says thank you. Government now is done with their closing argument. The judge instructs the jurors, tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen, I'll give you my instructions on how to handle this case. We'll see if we can read them. That will take about 1 hour, and then you'll receive the case. We'll start at 10 a.m. Have a great night. Don't talk about the case. See you tomorrow. Court is adjourned. Closing arguments from both sides now completed, but CNN and others are saying this was not good. The government's case is quite weak. Here is some brief reaction from CNN.
But what Michael's getting at is the burden of proof is an important one to remind everyone. It's on the prosecution, right? They need to prove beyond reasonable doubt that Donald Trump broke the law. And you think, after listening to all of this, you think they fell short. How?
They fell way short, because let's start with reasonable doubt. What is reasonable doubt? And it's not simply a doubt based upon reason. Anytime a human being needs to make an important decision in life, if you have enough information, for example, doctor says you need open heart surgery. Doc, go ahead and schedule. I don't have a reasonable doubt. Conversely, if I say, I appreciate it, but I need a second opinion, I need more information, that is having a reasonable doubt. There is reasonable doubt all over this case. Where is Keith Schiller? Where is Alan Weisselberg? How did Michael Cohen get away with stealing $30,000? Hold a pity party for him. Made $4 million on this. Thought he'd be chief of staff. He's a fixer. If the plumber comes to my house to fix my leak, I could be home. That doesn't mean I know how he's doing it and what it's taking to be fixed. Stormy Daniels, let's hold a pity party for her. Why do we need to know whether or not the former president wore a condom or not? It's simply about, did the former president know that books, his records, false entries for legal fees? Michael Cohen was his lawyer. Did he intend to cover up the election or to protect his family? It's everywhere.
Wow. Okay. So even CNN agrees this case is a sham, not legitimate. It has no credibility at all. So even if there is a conviction afoot, we'll just look at it like a politicized prosecution, because that's exactly what it is. So they're failing to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. CNN is making that argument, and of course, we'll be here to continue to cover Trump litigation. If you like this video, you're going to love this video coming up next. We can't wait to see you back here. Thanks for subscribing, and we'll see you over there on the next one.